So first thing you want to do is get ready to remove this inner hatch lining. And so we're going to need to take off these door handles, remove these clips here, and then we'll be able to pull the hatch lining off. So take your trim removal tool, and you'll see on these handles there are these little two cutouts. You can insert the trim removal tool in there, and these should come off pretty easily, but be careful as the tabs on this will break easily. So just be gentle, don't give it too much force, just get it in there and then pry, and then it should come out. You also need to remove these two clips. So again, with the trim removal tool, just pry them off. Once you pop the clip up, they'll just slide right out. So these two 10mm bolts will need to come out for both sides. Once you have all four 10mm bolts out from the handles, you can get ready to pull off the trunk liner. So you can, if you have your privacy screen on, just pop this off, put that aside. The first time we installed these taillights, we went ahead and we removed these rubber stoppers here, but these are a pain to get out because the way that they secure the tabs that they use, they're broken very easily, or they become loose very easily. So we realized that you can't actually leave these in here and just pull the liner off so it just hangs, and you still have plenty of clearance to get to the hatch mounted lights. So we're going to show you that now. So you can leave these rubber stoppers on. So you're just going to put your fingers in here and just pull this right off. There's 4 clips holding it in. It should come off pretty easily. And once you get the middle part off, you can also just pull these sides out. This side already came out on its own. This one you just pull. Just a couple more clips here. And just continue pulling the entire liner down, and they'll pop out. So basically the rubber stoppers are the only thing that's holding this trim in place. And this is a very light piece, so you don't have to worry about putting too much stress on those stoppers. But this way you don't have to worry about damaging these, you don't have to worry about getting new ones. We figured it'd be much easier overall. To remove the hatch mounted light, there's 2 8mm bolts here, one more 8mm bolt in here. And then there's this harness that you can just unclip. So here is the location of the third 8mm bolt. It's actually an 8mm nut. It's the last thing holding the hatch light onto the hatch. So when you remove this, you want to be very careful not to drop it, because it's possible you'll drop it inside the hatch frame, which will then be very annoying to have to fish out. So go slow. Use a magnetic socket if you have one. So once you have the 2 8mm bolts and the 8mm nut off, the hatch light should just pop off. Now to prepare to remove the actual tail light, we highly recommend you use some painter's tape and tape off the edges around the light, as there's a very high possibility of scratching your paint here while you're trying to remove the tail light. So better safe than sorry. So once you have that taped off, all you need to deal with are these two 8mm bolts holding the taillight to the frame. Once you have those bolts off, the taillight will be loose. Now, the only thing holding the taillight on at this point are two clips that are right here behind the light. So what you want to do is grab the taillight firmly and just pull it straight away from the car. So those two clips will become undone, and you should be able to access all the wire harnesses underneath. So once you have access to the back panel of the taillight, just take note of the connections here. Again, this is the HRS Sports Sequential taillight version 1, so this will look a little bit different than stock if you're upgrading from stock taillights, but just pay attention to the actual plugs. So we've got this plug here on this white plug where there's only one tab on one side, right? See these other two ones with the gray tabs, they have two tabs on either side, and then this one has no tabs. So the one with the single tab, this actually is the one that you're going to pull the harness off the plug, okay? So that you just press down on this tab and pull it out. These two gray plugs with the two tabs, these you're going to actually unlock and pull out completely. Once you pull these out, if you're working with the stock taillight, you'll see the actual bulbs. In this case, just pull these plugs out, or pull the bulbs out if that's what you're working with. And this last one is just going to be this plug that you can pull out. On both the version 1 HRS and the stock, you also have this clip right here. So just pinch this to release this harness from the clip, and then your taillight will be free to remove. A couple things to take note of here as you're plugging in all the wire harnesses. So the harness coming from the car, the one that has the black plug on the car side, okay, that is for the taillight plug that has the red wire. Okay, so the red wire goes into the black plug. So when you insert these, just make sure the contact points are properly seated in the plug. And later, when you're testing out the lights, if one of the functions doesn't work, like for example, let's say your brake light doesn't work, then find the plug that is the corresponding plug for the light, and if it's not working, just unplug it, flip it over, and plug it back in. That's the number one usual suspect of lights that don't work after you plug them in. So again, the red wire coming from the taillight, make sure that gets plugged into the black plug, okay? The yellow and black wire, this one gets plugged into the gray plug on the car side. The blue and black wire on the taillight, this is the one that's actually just the plug. This gets plugged in right here, which is it's the only plug here that has the correct size for this smaller one. So plug that in, and then you're left with this last plug here. So this one, before you plug this in, with the version 2, you can actually, if you unlock this, if you keep pulling this wire out, you'll see this thick harness in here that reveals this 3 dip switch panel. So you'll notice on the panel itself, they're numbered from 1 through 3. Number 1 and number 2. Number 3 is actually unused as far as I can tell. But number 1, when the switch is on the side where it says number 1, if it's on the numbered side, it's the normal function where as soon as you turn the taillights on, you'll see the animated sequence in the running lights. So if you want to turn that off and you just want them to be instantly on without any animation, you just flip the dip switch away from the number 1, and that's what turns the animation off. Okay, so if you want the animation on, turn the switch towards 1. If you want it off, flip it away from 1. Number 2 is the sequence animation for the turn signals. So when you have the switch set to the side that says number 2, it's the regular animated turn signal sequence. If you want it to just blink on and off like stock, then just flip this middle switch up away from the number 2, and you'll turn that animation off. And again, the third switch, I believe, it doesn't serve any function. So once you have your switches set to your preference, you can just sneak this back in here. Then make sure the tabs are aligned correctly for you to get this back in and lock it in place. And then you can insert the final harness, and you should be there's obviously this additional line for the hatch mounted light to complete the turn signal sequence. You'll grab the supplied extra connection wire here and plug this right in here. Make sure that's secure, and then your taillight should be ready to install. Our preferred way of running the turn signal wires up into the hatch is to simply remove this rubber trunk liner first, which you do just by simply just pulling up on this. It comes right off. You can leave the bottom part attached because you don't need to take it completely off, but just pull this liner out. That way you have access to all this cavity that you can really easily just tuck this turn signal wire into, and that'll keep it completely out of sight, and it'll make it super easy to keep clean and run up here to the middle. So right here at the center of the top of the hatch, if you look under here, you see this plastic plug located right here. We found that this is a great spot to route the wires through, and it prevents you from having to run it over the rubber lining, which has caused water leaks for some people. It also puts a crease in the lining as well. So to avoid that, we found that this is a great solution to just utilize this existing plug here. You can just pop it off with a trim removal tool. Just comes right off. Looks like this. So once you pop off this little plug, you can drill a hole in the center of this to route the wire through. What we did was we took a rubber cable loom and just glued it to the cap, or to the plug, and that lets us create kind of a more watertight seal, and it makes it look a little bit more OEM. You can choose to do this or not, whatever's more convenient or thorough for you. So once you get your loom in place and tape down. You have the rest of your wires ready to route. You can go ahead and replace the rubber trunk liner. So now you're ready to install the hatch mounted portion of the taillight. If you look on the underside, you'll notice that you have obviously your wires, and then you have this metal pin. This metal pin will help it align in place. That just goes right here in this plastic clip right there, and then the wires get all threaded through this hole, obviously. So with this harness, you'll notice that there's this switch, this rocker switch right here. When the setting you see it currently in with the circle pushed down, this is the default setting for the sequence when you hit the turn signal. So if the circle is pushed down, you'll have that animated sequence. If you push the other side in with the line, then this will just blink on and off in one solid flash, like a normal non-sequential taillight. So you'll want to coordinate that with whatever setting you've chosen for the taillights with the dip switch panel that was shown earlier. Or you could be funky and mix it up where you have one set to sequential and one set to solid. It's up to you. The benefit for the V2 setup is that you have that ability to choose whether you want the sequence or if you want just solid. The hatch wire that was routed along the side, and you'll want to connect that with this yellow wire that's coming from the hatch mounted light. So connect those together, and then this white connector slides right in, clicks in, and then there's a little clip that this connector mounts to right here. You can just slide that on, and that also snaps into place. Accessory on, and test all your lights to make sure it works before you button everything back up. Make sure that this rocker switch setting is where you want it. You can just tuck that in here. If you want to ensure there's no unnecessary rattling, you can wrap all this up in some tape and tuck it in nicely. Maybe add some foam if you want to.